Everything is very overgrown this year. It seems to have become triffid, sort of. Excuse me while I step over all the stingers. Oh, there we go. Yeah, it seems to have become sort of triffid-like in its approach this year. Wildflowers everywhere, insects, as you know. I was attacked by those a couple of weeks ago, which I think is really nice. It's almost like we've just let the countryside go wild. Anyway, welcome to this week's photo walk. We're a bit closer to home this week. Being in Avebury was good fun. I quite enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to doing some further afield missions with a clipboard. And actually, we have a couple of weeks, well, not really weeks away this year. Thanks to the pandemic, all holidays seem to get cancelled. We have some 3 and 4 day jaunts to different parts of the UK that are, strictly speaking, surprises for the boys. So I can't really say any more. Not that they listen to this podcast. There's not enough gaming involved or trains, but it was a fantastic, just a picture straight away here of the fields that cross to the village which I'm close to, which is called Brimpton. I've walked this way before, actually, but quite a while. I think it was back in the winter. Let's just get a picture. I quite like the texture of this barbed wire fence, which will be a kind of silhouette, really, against the field that leads towards Brimpton. I've got neutral density filter on today. It's very bright. Got some nice sort of texture in the clouds, though. I don't like a featureless sky, really. Shutter speed 350th, f2.8, 160 ISO, neutral density on. Let's get that. Marvellous. Are we ready? Welcome to
Photography Daily, the Friday photo walk.
It's the show of the week where we walk together with our cameras, but I'll bring along a microphone and mailbag too. A gentle amble in the countryside, which could be anywhere in the world, and usually is with your messages and pictures. It's the only photo walk show of its kind in the podcast sphere, with words and inspiration from former and future guests in between your letters. Digital ones, that is. Today, doors and more doors and projects. Amazing what's literally on your doorstep. A question about conflict photography and what it's achieved. We talk about setting out on your new photography journey, whatever your age. We try to guess the colour of listeners' cars. 2 knocks for yes. We're on the final leg of the Camino Trail in Spain with Angelica Schneider. We challenge you to one more first thing that you see picture. And we talk about last week's, including painting what you photograph. We find out at last what the grumpy old man with a camera looks like. Go for a walk along Liverpool's old docks and pierhead and talk about recording sound to go with your pictures. Inspirational words too from Tim Wallace, the car and aviation photographer, though it's all about personal projects this time from him. Finn Beals on first breaks, and Helen Jones-Florio on shooting a passion project. Lots to talk about on this bumper episode. You'll have to walk for a mite longer than usual. We're supported by our friends at mpb.com, the people and website to go to if you want to buy, sell or trade used camera gear safely in the US, the UK or Europe. Protected by guarantee when you buy, paying out quickly when you sell. And right now it's MPB's Photo and Video Kit Hall of Fame 2021, with voting ending on the 6th of August. Not long to go. A committee of world-renowned photographers, journalists and influencers, including Finn Beals, have selected nominees in 5 categories: classic, game changer, iconic, road-tested and trendsetter. Now it's time for you to vote on the best photo and video kit of the digital age. Go to mpb.com, though we will of course link to that today in the show notes on the show page. And by casting your vote, you'll have a chance to win the 2020 iconic inductee Hasselblad 500cm. And until October 3rd, 2021, we're proud to partner a photographic outdoor exhibition in the south of England called Photo Swindon, featuring from tomorrow Martin Parr. It's free, and each photographer has their time in various parks. There's 3 in all, Martin's the next, and open spaces of Swindon to show a story, one at a time. Go to @PhotoSwindon on Twitter, Facebook or Instagram for news, behind-the-scenes pictures and stories. Right, it's time to walk. Today I'm recommending hydrocortisone ointment, as there are a lot of wild nettles to push through. Lens caps off, long walking socks pulled right up, cameras at the ready, let's walk.
It's quite windy today, and I've chosen a track which is sort of it was tree lined, got an archway of trees all the way along it. It's a beautiful piece of countryside. If this was Smelly Podcast, you'd also reference the pungent smell of farming close by, which is nice. It reminds you that you're in the countryside. I wanted to find somewhere where there weren't so many birds and things last week, and when I listened back to it, it just sounded it sounded like I could be walking anywhere, and maybe around my garden or something. But so I was trying to find somewhere this week where there was a bit more sort of bird song, and I thought, well, let's go somewhere where it's really tree lined, because Avebury wasn't really tree lined. It was a lot in the open. Having said that, I've walked into this sort of tree lined avenue and I haven't heard a single bird yet. We will. Let's start with where we left off on Wednesday, shall we? Into the mailbag we go, talking about Insta in episode 251, an episode titled Instagram, Love, Hate, War, Want, and. And I did put up a fairly, should we call it abrasive? I'm not sure that's the right phrase, but I wanted to give it a title which sort of sat up there and people thought, oh, hello, what's this about? Instagram? Because, of course, everybody's talking about it at the moment. Well, nearly everybody. And it seemed to work. We had a really good response to the show. But fear not, if you're not a platform user and you struggle with the Facebook-owned giant, like many of those who've commented, and in detailed manner too, like Dennis Skyam and Eric Delorme, you two, by the way, with your Facebook group thoughts in the Photography Daily Facebook group. Oh, well, we're going to be featuring you over the coming weeks because you spent a great deal of time giving some very cohesive thoughts about what next for Insta, or why indeed you've chosen other platforms in Eric Delorme's case. So fear not, if you're not a user, we're just going to gently nudge away at this one instead of letting it become a major weekly subject on the photo walk. You can't get far away from Instagram. But it has brought a good few comments into the show, such as this from Sue Sayre. Although I will say, actually, we have an Instagram. Sorry, Sue. Stand by, Sue, for just a second. I will say that we have an Instagram account for Photography Daily, which I haven't been as diligent as updating as I wanted to be. And I'll tell you the reason why. And Kevin, my old mucker Kevin from the Fujicast podcast, he would right now, I know, it's fortunate he doesn't really listen very often. Don't tell him. But I know that he would raise his eyebrows and look at me in that kind of I told you, Neil way, because we talk about grids, myself and Kev, and the grid, the Instagram grid that we have for Photography Daily is way more complex than it needs to be, for good reason, because I thought I want to build a grid where it was a checkerboard grid where every other, well, we promote the podcast in one post, and then the next post will be a black and white, then the next post is a promotion, then the next post is a black and white, and it makes this really nice, I'm going to use that word again, cohesive content grid. I quite like grids like that myself when I want to look at things. It's a bit like going into a gallery and thinking, well, this all makes sense, but it's really hard to do, because although we've got some fantastic really great pictures from those that will still get featured, it meant that I always had to make sure I had one of those and did a write-up about it before I could put a program one up. And in the end, I just ended up not really posting very much. And that's not the point, is it? And one thing that we did learn from the first part of the show with Johnny Keeley, who was a guest, was that you should, well, you could, because could's a choice word, isn't it? You could be thinking about putting more of your personality into a grid. You know, show where you're working, show what you're doing, show the people that are involved. And yeah, so pretty grids, as I've been developing, are fantastic. But I've decided I'm going to start. Is this a U-turn, Neil? You should work for the government. Yes. I've decided I'm going to start maybe posting some pictures of what's going on in the studio sometimes, or a few more pictures from the photo walk, and obviously the pictures that you send as well, because it's great to have the community involved. So it's going to become a little less pretty grid-wise and a lot more content. Anyway, Sue Sayer. We're back in the room. Good morning, Neil. My reason for writing is to say how much I enjoyed the interview with Helen. Oh, yes. Helen Jones-Florio. She has been doing a project on Instagram for many years now. You could say, actually, Helen really would be an early adopter of the platform. But, she's been doing this this project. There's a lot of wind here. I'm hoping this is not going shh. I know I say that often, but I do sometimes have to re-record bits. Yeah, Helen's got this Instagram grid where she's been, or profile, where she's been photographing doors and shop fronts in West Africa, in the Gambia mainly, but also Senegal and other countries on the West Coast, and Malta, which is where she and husband, Jason, who you know of, because he's been featured recently, I mentioned him last week as well, where they had a base for a while. They don't have a base there now, only just recently moved their base entirely to Africa. But this is a great project full of, well, it's doors, and more doors. And because they're doors in another country, they're rather exotic, really, aren't they? You look at them and think, oh, look at these doors all day long. But of course, I'm sure to somebody in Senegal or the Gambia or Malta would come across here and say, oh, well, your doors are more interesting than ours. It's all about where you live in the world, isn't it, really? According to sort of how you exoticize things. Is there such a phrase? That was Helen's doors, and she was featured on the episode on Wednesday, and that's what Sue is writing about. I was extra interested as I've been making images not only of doors, says Sue, but the so-called furniture attached to them. It all started quite accidentally last year when we were allowed to roam a bit further from our homes on daily walks, yes. I mean, one moment we were being told, don't walk anywhere, or if you do, maybe you can walk outside and just get a little bit of exercise, but don't do that. Oh, it was all so confusing. But, it all started quite accidentally. She said, we were roaming a bit further. I wanted to take my camera out with me, just one lens. But what to photograph while wandering the streets in my local area of Weston-super-Mare, or Weston on the Mud, as you signed off with? Is that what locals know Weston-super-Mare as? I came across a beautiful old letterbox, and that was it. I'd found myself a new project, and since then, I've amassed quite a collection of doors, door knockers, letterboxes, as well as the occasional window, not to mention chimney pots, railings, and the odd boot scraper too. So some are taken using my phone camera when I need a wider angle, but mostly my X-T3 with a 55 to 200mm lens. I also try to take a few street shots to put my more favoured shots into some kind of context. So you've really been thinking about this project, haven't you, Sue? Yeah, I guess really when you find a project, you think, that's it. Woo, light bulb moment, ting, and away you go. That's fantastic when you have those moments, isn't it? Since this new project started last year, we, in brackets, him indoors, now go further afield, which is great. Bath is a favourite. I think it's a photographer's paradise for this type of project. You're not wrong there. Bath is full of interesting doors, isn't it? God, this bit's really overgrown. I'm sure last time we came up here, which would have been in the winter, to make this photo walk, just dodging around all the stingers. The stingers have become a problem this year. And it wasn't that I had twice as much... Oh, look, there's a thorny bush. Get underneath that one. Twice as much space to make this walk. We might have to give up halfway through this. It seems to be getting denser and denser as we go along. But yeah, back to your thoughts, Bath. Oh, no. I've stepped in something again. This is a bridle way. You can guess what I've just stepped into. At least they could have cleared the way for us. Now, what I need is a machete. This is ridiculous. Right, move over, please, stingers. I'm coming through. Don't you dare. Get out of the way. Why am I talking to you? You're not going to answer back. Bath is a fantastic place. You're quite right. I do have one slight worry, she says, though. What will I say when somebody opens their front door and sees a camera pointing their way? I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Well, I think, Sue, you just tell them what you're doing. They might be honoured. They think, oh, fantastic. You want my door in your project? Wonderful. So, I just be honest, tell them. Attached to a few of my favourites and a link to my website. So I will put the link, obviously, on the show page today, so you can go and see Sue's project. And if you go to see the website, you'll see how it's growing. So you could be doing this project for years. And a note about the website. My website, says Sue, is one of those free ones. Doesn't bother me in the slightest. I joined in 2014. I know I don't get many views, so I don't really see the point in paying for one. But for a hobby site with no strings attached, well, it serves me well. It never goes wrong. Well, don't say that, touch wood. And it all works on platforms without issue. Now, that could be a talking point, she says. Free or pay for websites. Personally, I don't have an issue with my website address including the word Weebly. It's a fair swap for a free website. So you're right, Sue. Weebly's a funny word, but you're right, it's free, so who cares? But, the powers that be there, do you think they all sat round a table and somebody said, I know, let's call it Weebly, the website URL. But no, you're right, it doesn't really matter. You're completely right. And it is a good talking point. So if you use a free website, write in studio@photographydaily.show. Tell me which ones you use and why you use it, as opposed to something like Squarespace or WordPress, which is the regular two that we talk about. So I tell you what we'll do, Sue. I think we should, as our first piece of inspiration today, play in an Incy clip from Helen, shouldn't we? From Helen Jones-Florio, talking about her wonderful doors project.
This is something, it's mine, it's my passion. It really is a passion. I love it, and I never get bored. I've got thousands of doors. Mainly from Malta and Gambia, because that's where I've spent the most of my time over the last 10-15 years, so it's going to be them. But then I might go to a little town in the States and they've got amazing old doors, and yeah, it has become a kind of, it's kind of running parallel with what we're doing, but it kind of fits out. Going back to stories behind doors, we've been photographing the victims in Gambia of the former regime, as you know, and I've started a series a couple of years ago, and it's something we'll do more of when we get back. We've been interviewing the people inside the houses, the victim and survivors, and I've also been photographing their doors from the outside. So there's definitely a little story which I know. I was thinking about not asking people, but I do know those stories. Malta we've left, so I doubt if I'll ever go back there, but I still have got hundreds of doors that I haven't put out there yet. But Gambia, I don't think I'll stop. As long as we're there, and as long as I see another door that I like, another storefront, and we travel to other parts of West Africa as well, and I've got some from Senegal and Ghana, and so if something catches my eye, I don't think it's ever going to really stop. But they're in every little village you go to, little town or city, or so I can't really see how the door's ever going to close. Not really, not fully.
Helen Jones-Florio from Wednesday's episode. She commented after I popped her interview up with the whole episode, which featured Johnny Keeley as well. She said, I realise now that I sound like a little overexcited 5-year-old when I talk about my doors. Isn't that just a wonderful thing, though, Helen? I think so. Because I love that about finding a passion, that you just need to tell people about it, and it doesn't matter at all that it's at Olympic runner enthusiasm speed. Fantastic. Right, we'll change direction entirely. Well, just before I do that, I think I'm far enough away from it now. I didn't like to record at the time because I was thinking, let's get past this. There was what would you call it when it's not in a hive? What do you call that? Oh, just a load of wild bees. They were just on the side of this tree. I thought, let me get past that quickly. We got a similar thing at home at the moment. The bees have taken up home in a bird box that we have, which, incidentally, if I can remember to take a picture, I will. Is actually a bird box that's been painted with loads of bees on the front. I think they looked at it and thought, oh, we'll have that as a house. Thanks very much. Yeah. But let me just get a picture of the where I've come from. I sort of ran through it very, very quickly. But I like one thing I really like about walking along these sort of avenues of trees where they all sort of fold over into each other, these archways of trees, is that you end up with these almost like funneled lighting scenes, don't you? We sort of look down and you see a sort of opening at the end that's illuminated, and all around it. So it's almost like a sort of self-vignetted scene. Let me get this one, see if this works. So F4, I'm using my X100V today. I really don't need the neutral density filter on now because it's quite dark within the woods. F4, shutter speed 320th, 350th, ISO 160, and there we go. So change of direction, as I said. Paul Sillard in our Facebook group. We have a Facebook page and we have a Facebook group. And very soon, Facebook told me the other day that they're going to start pushing the podcast actually through the page, or they'll be able to. I think it's rolling out gently, which is quite a nice idea, I think. Paul Sillard in our Facebook group, he said, I'd like to talk about a sensitive subject and hope I won't get flamed for it. And that is conflict or war photography. I know that there are dedicated photographers who often risk even their lives to document the horrors of war and conflict. But I just want to raise a counterpoint, re such images. I feel that the faces, the uniforms, the ethnicity of the victims and the perpetrators, it all changes, but the suffering and atrocities are all very similar. So why then go to such lengths to obtain new images like these? Am I the only person asking this? I wonder, ... Well, quite a few responses on that one within the group, but let me highlight just one, and if you want to read the rest, then yeah, please do join our excellent Facebook group, which is growing. Lots of like-minded people in there. No squabbling. We'll let you in. Just knock on the door and you've got the right trainers, etc., etc. But there was one comment. John Kelly, not to be confused with Johnny Keeley, of course, who was our guest during the week. John Kelly answered, as both a photographer and ex-RAF who served in Kuwait and Iraq, I personally think that these images are important to document the results of war, with the damage and the death and the carnage it wreaks. It is a reminder to all what war brings, in a hope of preventing more of the same. Futile may be, but important all the same. Thank you very much for your follow-up on that. Wasn't it? It was, wasn't it? Don McCullin, I've talked about this before, who laments that he feels his pictures, and I mean, look at the places that he's been in 50, 60 years of covering all sorts of conflict, famine, conflict, war, that he laments that he doesn't feel that his pictures stopped war in any way, or they may have brought attention, but they haven't changed what did he say? Haven't changed the human condition. I think he feels, Don McCullin did this is very, very at odds with that concept, despite the important work that he's done. I always found that fascinating when he talks about how he feels his pictures haven't necessarily made the difference that he would certainly have dearly hoped that they would. Email from Eric Snyder. Hello, Neil. The podcast has been such good company during COVID. I listened most weekends from Dallas and Texas. We talked about Texas yesterday on the Patreon area when I did my diary piece, a couple of pieces yesterday, and also, of course, our book club, the wonderful The Brothers book. That amazing book. So for those that are in our Patreon area, that's the book club that we do each week, of course, with my diary pieces. And actually, as I go out more and more now to my photographic commissions, those diary pieces, there's certainly more to talk about. But yeah, I was talking about a pub quiz, funnily enough, and one of the which did end with a photo. There was a photographic reference in the end, but I'd also faced, I think the first round, wasn't it? The first round was we had to identify American states by their outline on a piece of paper, and I was absolutely appalling. And before you say, yeah, that's because you're not American, Neil, to our wonderful American audience, of which I know we have a good number, I have to be honest and say that I would have been just as hopeless, I think, at recognising the shapes of counties. Some of them I might have got Berkshire. I hopefully would have got my own. But yeah, Texas was the one I thought I'd get. Turns out Texas is not quite the shape I thought it was. It was Utah, wasn't it? But yeah, the diary pieces in the Patreon area. But Eric Snyder, hello Neil, the podcast. Yes, great company. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm a beginner photographer, age 52, and enjoy hearing about your family as well, since I have an 18-year-old son. Thank you so much for the good-natured show. A great morale boost, and I hope to send some photos soon. Thank you. Well, thank you, Eric. And yes, please do send some pictures. I'd love that. A beginner photographer, age 52. Marvellous. A new adventure, Eric, is beginning. And I'd like to hear from a few more new photographers. It's interesting that the Photo Walk has certainly identified that not everybody has to be a full-time or even rabid hobbyist. A rabid hobbyist? That's a terrible way to describe it. Well, I was trying to suggest somebody who's very, very passionate, very keen. I probably failed there, didn't I? But those that are just starting, those that have just picked up a camera recently, maybe just had one bought for a birthday present or something like that, be nice to see what you're doing with your camera. Because I know there's a few of you that are pretty new to this, that listen now to the Friday Photo Walk. Whatever you shoot, I'd like to know more about what you're shooting, and I'd really like to receive some pictures too, so we can join you at your start. So Eric, I want to join you at your start and see your development, see what you're doing. My good friend Giles, I know he always tells me off for mentioning him. Stop mentioning me. Well, I haven't done for a couple of weeks, so it's about time for me to do that. Now, I'm coming down here just before I say this. This is usually where there's a lovely little stream, but it's all dried up. There's nothing here at all. Usually you have to step right over this. Nout, nada, look. It's not in the least bit wet. It's completely dry. And up here on the left, usually I can filter my way into a field, into a farmer's field. It's lovely up there, but I can't get through there because that's nettle heaven. Aren't people supposed to make soup out of nettles? Anyway, Giles. Yes, Giles. He, he's a seasoned photographer, obviously, isn't he? But he's kind of got a new start at the moment. He's starting to photograph with large format. And he's not chosen to photograph landscape. He's chosen to photograph within the landscape, the beauty within the landscape. When I said flying things, by the way, I didn't mean aeroplanes. I wanted birds and, bird song. Not you, with your annoying engine. Moving on. So yeah, Giles is kind of like starting over, really, with his fantastic, very considered photographs that he's making with his large format. And I'm hoping to actually go and join him on some of those adventures. I think he's just practicing at the moment. But at some stage, I'd like to go out. Maybe we could do a little photo walk. Who knows? Email from here's one from Mark Creamer. Hi Neil, needless to say I was thrilled when I heard my suggestion of talking to Tim Wallace was going to come to fruition on the show, and he didn't disappoint. I've long been a fan of British cars, especially the classics. I have a 76 Triumph TR6. Wow, that's the car to have. Let me guess, hang on, I'm going to do some mind reading. I bet. Send me a picture just to... Next week I want to have a picture that we can put on the show page to prove I was either right and I can mind read or see afar, or I was completely wrong. So it's either going to be a racing green or it's going to be bright red, isn't it? One of two. I think you went for a bright red one. A 76 Triumph TR6. That was the drought year, wasn't it? I remember that year well as a child, going camping in... where would it have been? In Wales, in a place called Newgale. Proved me wrong, all right, with a photograph. For the first time I saw Tim's image of a 1964 DB5, says Mark, I was absolutely hooked. His work brings an emotional response to somebody who loves these rolling works of art as much as I do. Can you hear that creaking in the background? I'm right next to a tree. It sounds like it's about to come down. Should I be standing here? Are you going to come down, or is that just a little bit of creaking because you're sort of feeling your age now? It is it? All right. As a quick side story, says Mark, I know the gentleman who bought the surviving original James Bond Goldfinger DB5 for $4.6 million back in 2010. He's a local businessman with an amazing collection of classic vehicles. He's since sold that car at a significant profit, of course, but it was a thrill to see and touch that iconic vehicle, complete with its ejector seat. No way! It didn't really eject, did it? Anyway, I know we did last week, and I think we did with Helen as well while I think about this. But I'd like to play a bit more of Tim Wallace. Some inspirational thoughts. A car photographer, great aviation and aerospace photographer now as well. But here's Tim Wallace from last week.
The thing is that when you shoot commercial work at a certain level, a certain style or a certain type of client, it almost has to be really, really perfect all the time. And that's understandable. No one's going to pay you £4,000 a day to go in studio and produce something that's just not quite there. Do you know what I mean? So you've got a responsibility to get it done.
Yeah.
Personal work is it's just like a breath of fresh air. It's like going out for a walk in the countryside and just relaxing. One of the things I do is that every time we go out as a family with the kids, or we take the dogs on the beach, Southport or something like that, and I take pictures of the dogs jumping and being lunatics and the kids laughing and playing in the car.
Yeah.
Every year, I just put all these things in a folder, and every year I put all these things into a book that's about 100 pages odd, and I get it printed A2 and bound, and I give it to my wife as part of their Christmas present. It's our memories. Yeah. Because if my Mac ever blows up, or the server ever blows up, or the cloud disappears, all that stuff from my family will be gone forever, for generations. So that's why I print it. Personal work is important because it's you doing whatever you want to do. And when people say like, yeah, but there's nothing for me to photograph, I don't know what to photograph. I photograph my kids in their bedrooms doing handstands and all sorts of random rubbish. But you do it because it's life. Just shoot life. Just shoot what's in front of you. The more you shoot, the more instinctive it becomes. The more instinctive it becomes to use your camera, the less of your brain you use to shoot, and the more of your heart will come through. Shoot with your heart, not with your head. It makes a massive difference.
There we go. Tim Wallace, episode 249. Success is not a pipe dream. Wonderful to hear from... welcome to the photo walk, by the way. Not that you've just joined us, because it's not like a radio show. You wouldn't just have tuned in, would you? That would be a bit strange. But the photo walk, just in case you are thinking, well, I've joined this show, but I'm not quite sure what it's all about. It's where I take a microphone out and we both go walking. Us with our cameras, me with my microphone and the mail bag, and we have a little shufty through what you've been saying, what you've been sending in, the sort of photo projects that you're working on, any plans that you have, such as Sue Sayre right at the start talking about her doors project. That's what the show's all about, and you're welcome to write in with pictures, because you'll notice that again this week it's quite a busy show page, which is fantastic with your images. Send them to studio@photographydaily.show, studio@photographydaily.show. But do me a favour, please, if you can make sure you send in on the long side the images 2,000 pixels wide or long. That would help when we're popping them on the show page. Actually, landscape orientated pictures work slightly better than only because of the design of the website. Slightly better on the blog page anyway, than portrait oriented ones, but either or. I'm just delighted to receive them. Anyway, wonderful to hear again from Angelica Schneider, emailing in, who's just finished her Camino photo walk in Spain. Well done. Round of applause, standing up, saluting, because it's a long walk. And I know that you've had some very hot temperatures. Was it 38 or was it not quite 38? I know you've had 30s, that's for sure. Whew, that is hot. It's been an interesting week, Neil, since I last wrote to you. It's a couple of weeks, isn't it? We omitted to carry on your story last week, didn't we? Apologies, humble apologies. Who's been on her Camino walk in Spain. Well, the main action is, of course, walking, though every day is different. We arrived at the destination of the day, all sweaty and presumably somewhat smelly, only to be told that the whole town had no water. Oh, no, really? It was kind of bizarre, since the television in the bar showed pictures of Or the terrible flooding in Germany. Never take water for granted. It's a major factor every day anyway when planning for the day to make sure there's enough during the day. Right now there are enough fountains or bars to top up. On some stages it can be quite precarious though. Luckily, the water shortage only lasted a few hours, so all was well in the end for this town. What else? I love the way you sort of conversational style, Angelica, of your mails. What else? I don't know. What else, Angelica? Well, I'll tell you, Neil. There was the day when a shepherd watching his 400 or so sheep was delighted to discuss things politically. North Korea, communism, Catalonia separatism is allegedly a Russian plot. Oh, blimey, that got deep. Brexit. Why? She says, question mark. I wish I knew the answer myself. The whole lot. Bars are not just bars. They are where people drink their coffee, have a chat. And in some villages, they seem to be the local social points. And in a lot of them, people love to chat. And in the case of a foreign pilgrim walking in, all sorts of questions get asked. Great to learn more about Spain, culture, what's up the road, shortcuts and so on. Some people actually even pay for your drink. Angelica, where do I sign up? No blisters so far, which makes me very happy. You must have trained hard or got exceptionally good walking boots. That's what it's about, isn't it? I understand, actually. I think, Angelica, did you tell me this? Or did somebody else tell me this? I was confused about the amount of pictures that you get of boots. Because there's always pictures of boots on that trail, and you think... And some of them don't actually look like they're in terrible shape. But the people just leave their boots. And apparently sometimes it's where people have stopped. And they thought, right, that's it, I'm done. And leave their boots there. I assume they put on something else and off they toddle to a taxi, and that's it all over. And some people finish by, there's some famous cliffs where people did do this, or did I dream this bit? Where there's just a line of boots, which has become sort of a tradition. But yeah, if your boots aren't hurting, if your feet aren't hurting, if you don't have blisters, then you've chosen well. There's been some beautiful countryside, which means hilly, some steep climbs, and some even nastier downhills. I wouldn't call the downhill the nasty bit. Although when you run, it's actually easier to run uphill, isn't it, than running downhill. Drop dead gorgeous at times, she says, and the person coming up with the idea of setting up a swing and a mountain top deserves a prize for inspiration. What a way to enjoy the scenery. We're getting closer to Santiago. There are some more pilgrims about. More about that next time. And when I say we, I mean the little group of pilgrims I fell in with. See, that's nice as well, isn't it? As you're making this huge photo walk across Spain, you're sort of picking up friends as you go along. A bit like a scene from Forrest Gump's just come to mind. Well, you know that bit where he sort of starts off and there's nobody, and then that sort of scene builds, and by the end of it, there's a whole line of people behind him. Two of those that I've been joined with have been walking from Almeria. One from, is it Almeria? Yes, one from Granada. We keep bumping into each other every so often. The celebration dinner in Santiago, that's already planned. You'll see the pictures of Angelica on the swing, actually, and more pictures from her pilgrimage, or as I like to call it, the ultimate Friday photo walk. They'll be on the show page. And it's been fantastic to keep in touch, Angelica. Thank you for doing that. She mentioned in a follow-up mail that I should be planning my Camino next year. And really, I am very, very tempted. Although, actually, I'll be in Turkey. So it might not be so possible. Turkey's not exactly just around the corner. So maybe 2023. Yeah, I mean, a lot can happen in a couple of years, can't it? 2023. What do you think about that? A sort of a whole month, a sort of photo walk month, really, because I don't suppose I could prepare the normal shows and sort of leave them behind to go out, and then every Friday just do the Camino walk to Santiago. Yeah, that could work, couldn't it? It'd be a lot of fun. I feel, even though we've featured Angelica a bit of late, that we should hear a bit more of her experience making this amazing walk in Spain, which, wherever you are in the world, you are invited to one day take, because people come from all over the world for this pilgrimage. Once we've kicked that nasty into the rough, oh please. Here's a moment from episode 202 with Angelica Schneider. making your photo book pilgrimage.
You see very quick that there is a great opportunity for super shots. So I think my photography evolved as a pilgrimage kind of carried on. Pretty quickly I went to black and white, and then I had some more individual shots. So I never planned the shots because I don't think you really can, because you don't know where you are from one day to the next. You can't predict the weather and etc. So after a few years I kind of could see a body of photos developing, but not knowing how to develop it. So this project took a while to evolve, to find the concept of what kind of text to go with it, because it's not really, I wouldn't say it's a touristy type to portray the Camino. So it's not like typical places or a great mixture of, we're showing young people, old people, or women and men, all inclusive. It's a personal body of work, if you like. But most pilgrims or people who've bought it and have seen it really recognize the pilgrimage in it. So that's been very, very nice to receive those comments.
Along this stream, I've come a bit further along. I guess I could follow this stream. Well, what would have been the stream? It's dried up now, and it's kind of like a gate here that would have been across the stream. Let's just see if I can get a picture of it. Shutter speed 100th, f4, ISO 640. It's a bit dark in this bit. Can I follow it along? Let me just peer around the corner. Is it possible? That gate being across what was the stream would suggest that they don't really want you to follow it, but it just looks too inviting. Angelika Schneider there, she did send a picture of the... I'll talk to you while I'm trying to get around this bit. Hold on, let me concentrate. First of all, I've got to get around that bit. Oh, this is odd. This is really damp here, but the stream is completely dry. What's that about? Right. There we go. Oh, it doesn't go anywhere. Neil, you could have seen that surely from a distance. No, I couldn't. Anyway, look, I'll step up the bank again into the slightly wooded area here, and more creaky trees, as you can probably hear in the background. Let's stop over here for a second. Yes, Angelika did send a picture of the Cathedral Santiago at the end of the walk, though it came through as a JFIF. Although, what's a JFIF? A JFIF? A JFIF file is like it's a bitmap graphic that uses JPEG compression. There we go, now you know. I didn't know that before. I thought I knew my file formats, but clearly not. Right, shall we do a first thing that you see? It's become a feature of the show, but I'm wondering how many more legs this feature actually has. I mean, you've been fantastic sending in your first things that you see, and I'm going to do one in a moment, but I'm just wondering whether to make this the last one and move on to a new idea. Because it was, if you remember, I'm still having to stoop to get through this wooded area. It was a sort of flippant remark, wasn't it? First thing that you see. I was doing a walk. Was it the fisheries walk, where I walked along this wonderful. Well, it was private, but the gate was open, and an open gate just says "Come on in." So I did, and I walked along this fisheries path, and saw how the other half live. Those that have the fishing passes in this part of the world, they sort of have their own pavilions, and I always thought that the job of a fisher person was to sit at the side of a bank and get cold and not catch anything. But it seems no. In our part of the world, they have pavilions and what look like little bars and rest areas, and it's just not. It's not at all how I thought it was. But yes, so that's when we had the idea, wasn't it? And I think I flippantly said, should we turn on the spot and just make a picture of the first thing that we see? And then that became the feature. And we've been doing it now for a little while, haven't we? So, but I wonder how, when they talk about legs in a project, legs in an idea, I wonder how many more legs it has, or whether the legs have got a bit tired. They've walked all the way to Santiago and thought, hang on, can we have a new idea now? But before we take a new one for this week, and I'll give you the countdown, and I'll explain what it is. It's in essence where you pick up your image making machine. So it doesn't have. It can be a mirrorless, it can be a DSLR, it could be an action camera, it can be a smartphone, pinhole if you can somehow get that image to us. Whatever you take your image with, whatever's in your hand at the time that can make an image, then the idea is, you simply, when I give you the countdown, 5 to 1, and then take, I do one as well, then you make an image, you make a picture. But we'll do that soon. First of all, I want to thank those that did send theirs in that feature on the show page. The show page, as I said before, nice and busy this week. There's lots of images there, lots of fantastic pictures. And I always show the first thing that you see pictures that I make a reference to now. So these are the ones that you can see on the show page. Now, there's a reason to go to the show page, if ever there was one. Let's start with Carlos Kiana, who's on Miami Beach. Apology to make, first of all. Oh, here come the helicopters. I'm not lost. I'm okay. You don't need to rescue me. I'm fine. Tell the aeroplane friend of yours as well. Maybe turn left. Go somewhere else. I love aeroplanes and helicopters. You know that. Just not one. Oh, he's gone. He has actually turned left. Did you hear? Oh no, you've come back. Apology to make, Carlos, because I know you're going to notice it, but nobody else will know. And I'm going to come clean. I'm going to be absolutely honest with you here. Carlos sent in this Miami Beach picture, which is fantastic. Now, from memory, it has, is it in the top right-hand corner? It has a picture of a cruise liner just sort of making its way across the horizon. And it feels to me like the beach before the day has started. So I really do like the image, but I've straightened the horizon. I know. Sorry, Carlos. I can see you looking at me over your. If you have reading glasses, I don't know whether you do. You'll be looking at me over your reading glasses now, saying, "What? You touched the image? That's not the idea." The first thing that you see, the first thing that you see should be imperfections and all. I just have this thing about straight seas, straight horizons. I always say if I'm ever mentoring, I do mentoring, and if I'm ever mentoring, I often say to people when I'm looking through their fantastic pictures, straight horizons. I'm not one for a Dutch tilt. I'm going to level with you here. And if it's a Dutch tilt at sea, even worse. I say, what's happening here? Are we all going to fall off the world? The flat earth people are going to be proved right at last. That, oh, look, it's flat. And then, oh, look, then it sort of goes down at 45 degrees. We're all going to fall. Ah! So, yes, I straightened it. I am sorry, but it is a fantastic picture. Am I forgiven? Yes, Neil. Just don't do it again. Kelly Mitchell has found a collection of old stuff, cars and carts and things like that in Val-Marie in Canada. Eric with a K in Denmarkland, as it's now become known within our Danish community, is in a shopping mall. He says, listening to another Friday photo walk, though I have to admit, Neil, in the beginning it was the episode I used to skip. Really? How dare you? Then I started listening to it and it's grown on me. No, I wouldn't be without it, listening to it on the bus on the way home. And in the shopping mall as well, obviously, because that's when you took your... You must have been going through the shopping mall, I suppose, on the way to the bus. Is that the way it worked? Yeah, probably. Who else do we have? Oh, yes, Colin Mayer, down under. First thing he saw was I want to get this right, Sri Venkateswara Temple. Is that right? Venkateswara Temple. I do practice these. Honestly, I do. A Hindu temple from the car park, which is usually full, he says, of Toyota Camrys and Kia Sportages. Nothing wrong with that car. This is not your turn. I hope to capture the festival of Ganesh, the elephant god in Hindu culture. Oh, that would be a cracking thing to photograph. Events like that. Oh, wonderful. Here's one from Sikandar Rana, of a sunset out of my back garden. I really appreciate the importance of vulnerability and mental health you champion, not just in episode 248R, so it was a couple of weeks ago when you took this particular one. Sorry it's taken me a couple of weeks to post it, but I am up to date, you know. But also in so many other episodes where you talk about mental health. We do, and I will continue to champion it because I think it's really important. Truly an example of what the photo community needs more now than ever. In fact, I love the sunset so much. Oh, this is the bit. I love this. I love the sunset so much says Sikandar, that I decided to paint it in watercolours. The ability for photographers to transfer their skills to other artistic media, regardless of skill or ability, is something I've explored recently, and I hope that this inspires others to do the same. I think it probably will. I've done a little bit of painting myself. Before I can lay claim to being an artist, painting and being an artist, two entirely different things. But I mean, it goes back, what would I have been in my 20s last time I really painted with any purpose? Or no, maybe 30s actually. I was in, one of my favourite times was in Lanzarote. I found this, I went off in my little hire car on Matod. It was a holiday that I had on Matod, staying with some friends. And I took this hire car and I found this real proper tumble-down building. I'm convinced it's probably still there to this day. I think have I talked about this building before? I just took a couple of bottles of water, the watercolour paints, my pencils, obviously, a book, and that was it. And I was there for the entire day. Fantastic. Oh, if you could prescribe anything for blood pressure, painting would be the number one thing I would say. Maybe I should never be a doctor. Don't ever take my advice. Here we go, what you need. You don't need your Ramapril, put those to one side. What you need to do, look, reach to my top cupboard, pull out the watercolours. Take these, take them off, go do some painting. That will cure you. Joshua Sidwell sent in a pano, which I've shown on the show page separately to the carousel as it worked better. Love the way, Joshua, the clouds start really calm on the left-hand side and get gradually stormy as your eyes move to the right in the photograph. Jan-Erik Mostrom's on a van tour in Sweden. First thing that he saw, a graveyard. Well, fair enough. Mike Miller, a street lamp, top off, as he says. He took my mentor's advice and, say it with me, looked up. Yeah, there's nothing to say, you know, when you do that first thing that you see photo, which we're going to be doing any moment now, that you can't think, oh, look up. In fact, I'm looking up now. I'm looking at the sun coming through the... I love that scene. I love that view when you see sun. Let me get a picture of it. Hang on. The sun streaming through the leaves. See? You just made me, Mike. You made me look up. So let me get that for you. What have we got? Shutter speed, 1500th, f4, 160 ISO. Doesn't seem to be... Oh, there we are. You have to... If you move yourself around a little bit, then you get the flare, don't you? But you kind of, it's really sort of gradual movement, so almost rocking backwards and forwards. I think if somebody saw me rocking backwards and forwards here, they'd be wondering what was going on. We'll steer clear of that. I might have that. You can be the judge when you see it. Who else did we get? Just a couple more here. Nick Norris, who made a picture of his bike as he was about to jump on it and head home after a day's work. Strong black and white, Nick. Love it. John Clark, who said, in the middle of the day hunting for gypsy moth caterpillars, trying to defoliate my locust tree. Drop my poking stick to shoot on your command. A burlap around the tree to slow down the little buggets. I didn't know is that what they're called? I didn't know that. What is it again? A burlap. It's kind of like it's like a duvet, sort of, that you put around the tree and you stop the bugs either going up or coming down. Going up, I suppose. That's what a burlap is. You see, it's an education every week, this one. And then grumpy old man with a camera has done a self-portrait, and I'm leaving that one to the last one in the carousel display on the show page, because I know that you will want to find out what Dave, aka grumpy old man with a camera, in his big, well, this is a muscle truck, that's for sure, in his truck somewhere in America, you will want to know what he looks like. Pull on that handle, Dave, for a long drawn-out horn. Wake everyone up around you, because I know usually it's very, very early when you're out, isn't it? So should we do our first thing that we see? Let's do this first thing that we see image. Right, so this is the idea. Grab your camera or your image-making device. Doesn't sound very romantic, does it? Image-making device. Sounds horrible. It's like the word creator. And I want you to poke it in the direction. When I give you the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, just poke it in any direction. You can look up, just like Mike Miller did, that worked for me, and make a picture and then send it in to me for the first thing that you see feature. So here we go. 5, get my camera ready. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and click. And that is the first thing that you see. And this is me trying to get out of this bit of woods since, how do you get out of this bit? I put myself in the right corner here, in the right nettly corner, come to that. If I'm not out in 10 hours, call somebody, would you? You're okay. You can put the SOS on hold. I managed to find a way out. I do think sometimes that, and I might do this for the patron channel, that sometimes one link a week for the patrons should probably be made on the photo walk, shouldn't it? In video, so you can actually see the place as well. I know it's I nearly said wonderful. I know it's fantastic actually hearing, because that's what, you know, that's the beauty of audio, isn't it? Theatre of the mind. That's audio. But I'm thinking, I think maybe come winter, summer. This is I'm heading into a pretty brisk in terms of, well, thank God it is. As long as I don't get pinged. If you're in Britain, you know what that means, or UK rather, you know what that means. If I don't get pinged or I don't get positive, then this month should be one of those months where you think, good, lots of stuff on, lots of photography, chance to make some hay while the sun shines, and then there are some days away as well. So maybe come winter, that would be a better idea. But in the interest of always thinking of new stuff, shall we make that the final first thing that you see? And I look forward to posting those that you do take this week, next week. Unless, of course, there's an influx of, keep it, Neil. I do like that idea, because I do listen to you, you know. And before I move on to more from the mailbag, Jan Erik, who I referenced with one of the photos that he sent in, he sent the first thing that you see, the movie. And I meant to actually post this a couple of weeks ago. Apologies to those that are waiting for some things to be mentioned. You do send in wonderful mails, and I know I bumped some sort of further up because they might be relevant to a subject that we've literally just been talking about, but I will get round to them all. So apologies, Jan, because I meant to put your first thing that you see, the movie, up a few weeks ago. He says, and trying to teach myself to make videos, I thought I'd document one of my morning walks. I've done it before. Trying to learn how to use the camera. This time the goal was to learn and create something combining video and stills. The main thing I learned this time is that video and the stills should have the same aspect ratio. Yes. And actually, I bet you, yes, you did. You made the mistake of also turning the camera and shooting portrait, which, of course, when you're trying to put pictures into a film, you think, oh, I've shot portrait. And a film, unless you're purposefully shooting and you know, a film that is upright, otherwise you're trying to squeeze upright into horizontal, which never works particularly well. But here's my morning exercise. It says featuring the first thing you see photo. I'll put a link to your Vimeo film that you sent me on the show page. Jan's compressed it slightly, otherwise a 12-kilometre walk might be quite a long film to watch. But I thought it was quite interesting actually, and it did kind of kick me up the backside a bit to suggest what I have just suggested, you know, sometimes recording a bit of this photo walk on video. So let's go to your mails. Here's a mail and pictures which will be on the show page from Dave Brown. Dave Brown. I think I should do some more urban walks, you know, Dave. Looking at your pictures, I was drawn right in. But it does sometimes, sound-wise, it gets just a bit noisy on the microphone. That's the only problem. Hi, Neil. Just sharing my photos from a photo walk along Liverpool's dock back to the pier head. No longer the hub that it was, with literally thousands once upon a time working here. Massive redevelopment is about to get underway for Everton's football stadium and conversion of the huge tobacco warehouse into loft living apartments. I hope they come with good heating, he says. They'll need it. The vent-looking building is just that. It's servicing the Mersey tunnel system. Yeah, you'll see one of the pictures. Just shows this huge... Now, I've seen it, actually, because I've driven that way. It's just this huge vent. It's a building with just slats on the side. I think, what on earth is that? It's just this massive, massive vent that provides air for the tunnel system. There were pubs and cafes aplenty at one time, now just empty, with vans on site to serve the construction gangs. As you approach back to town, you can pass the cruise ship terminal. And there was actually a cruise ship in there, wasn't there? What was it? It was a Viking Line, I think, from memory. Yeah, I'm sure it was, a Viking Line. And you head to the pier head, which was once a bus and ferry terminus. Hope you like the pictures. Regards, Dave. Dave, I love the pictures. They are... Well, there's something fantastic, isn't there, about pictures, not of decay, because that's going to sound... I don't know, that's going to sound patronising, particularly when said, you know, coming from the mouth of a southerner. But I don't mean it that way. But seeing history as it changes, that's a far less clumsy way to put this. Oh, think before you speak, Neil. Think. I'm trying. But to see you recording history this way, I mean, these are really important, pictures, and one day we'll look at pictures like this, and those buildings will no longer be there, and you'll think, oh, do you remember that pub there? And do you remember that bus terminus? And do you remember? Yeah, all those pictures that you've made, they're vitally important, aren't they? At showing the texture and the tapestry of this glorious city that you live in. And the pub, there was one particular picture that they're great. I've put them up in a slightly different grid formation, and when you click on them, they'll expand and open in a new window. I sometimes change the way we approach the blog page when we do the show page. And the picture that really grabbed me was the pub, which is a very simple image, and it is a boarded up pub, and just a bit like, I mean, we're going back to Sue Sayer, aren't we, here now, and Helen Jones-Florio talking about, you know, doors and what's behind the door, because I felt, you know, that exactly. I thought, oh, what's behind that door? That's fascinating. Or behind those doors of that pub. I wonder if the bar's still there. Is it, if you walked in, would you just find sort of a dusty bar, but pretty much everything intact? Maybe the glasses, the pint jugs still hanging. I don't know. I mean, obviously no beer in the taps. You certainly wouldn't want to try it if there were. But that reminded me so much of. There's a printer that I used to use, a printer and an album company that I used to use called GF Smith. Now, sadly, GF Smith, not the entire business, but the part of the... Oh, hang on, I've got more nettles. Ow! You? Ah! Oh, there's nothing I could do about that one. Ow! All the way along my forearm. You nasty... Oh, moving on. And it's no good talking to the vegetation, Neil. Well, I don't know, they might listen. And, GF Smith, it's in a part of Hull that's kind of... What would the expression be? Between development? Maybe. Because there are some... You can imagine that, this GF Smith, a massive print works, very famous print works, with so much history to it. But there are other companies around it with similar history, very important to the landscape of Hull industry, really. But some of it is closed down. Certainly all the pubs that once would have been full of, I don't know, printers, mechanics, engineers, from all those industrial buildings, they would have frequented these places. And I always said that when I went up there one day, I'd get a picture of it, and I never did, because GF Smith, sadly, the album division of it anyway, they stopped working, a COVID casualty, and I never returned. Well, maybe I should just go there one day and do it for the sake of doing it. I think that might be a nice idea, to return there, because they have all these pubs in very similar fashion, actually, Dave. Fascinating. Thanks very much for your pictures and your mail, and yes, I will put those on the show page, so everybody can see them. Craig Wilson, loving the longer photo walk show, hearing the thoughts and seeing the images of other listeners, and also some of the photographers you mentioned. It's given me some inspiration lately. Michael Beecham, for example. Yes, dear Michael. His Insta feed is superb. Michael, of course, talked to us, or actually talked to me on the Fujicast podcast, and we used a little bit, didn't we, the other week to talk about his exhibition called Sanity Within the Stasis, his one-man show that he put on. I'm hoping that the inspiration was for you to do your own one-man show. Matt Searles, he says, on the postal round with his Milky Way images, which you can see on his website. And then Tim Wallace, the interview, which I really enjoyed. His images with the aircraft I like more than those with the cars. We mentioned Tim. We featured him today, haven't we? Yeah, I think his images of the aircraft are fantastic. That's I have to say, that's a job I would love. I'd dearly love to make aviation pictures. But Neil, you're always moaning at the little planes flying over the top. Oh, well, only because I'm trying to record an in the countryside photo walk. That's the only reason. I love planes. And I tell you what, being at an airport, who's that photographer that has there's somebody at Heathrow. I don't know, Neil, you're about to ask me a question I've got no idea of, the answer of. Well, there's a chap that's been there for years and years and years. And he photographs everybody going through. So, he gets the VIPs like, David Beckham comes to mind. The first VIP that came to mind, David Beckham. And so he does that. That's part of his job. But also, what's his name? George Dennis? But he also photographs just life at the airport. And I think that would be so interesting, wouldn't it? What's that scene from... It's a working title film right at the start. Hugh Grant's in it, where he talks about loves being at the airport because he loves watching people come and go. There's people hugging and crying, departures and arrivals. Just for me, that would be the ultimate documentary project. There we go, Neil. You just found your documentary project. Get yourself down to Heathrow. Bob's your uncle. Not quite that simple, probably. I would imagine taking pictures day after day. Somebody might say, "Is that guy that's wandering around with a camera?" Plus, also, you'd need to be able to get airside, wouldn't you? I think you'd need to be able to get pictures behind the scenes. But, maybe I should write. Why not? Food for thought. So, yes. Where were we? Yeah, Tim Wallace. Yeah, I get sidetracked so easily. You know that. All very different projects, says Craig, and different photographers from each other, but all equally they make me want to pick up the camera after a time that's, well, we all know how the last year has been, but we're moving on. And Craig says, to coin a Sean Tucker phrase, shoot what makes us happy. Looking forward to the next walk from Craig. Well, Craig, thank you very much for dropping a line into the show. It's always good to hear from you. And should we do a last mail of the week time? That's what I was trying to say. Yes. Eric Joseph. Now, I'm going to play in something that you recorded any moment now. The martins that you were photographing. The birds, the martins, just to go along with your pictures on the website and your email, which says, I wanted to share some photos from my photo trip to the Forsyth Wildlife Refuge in, is it Brigantine? Brigantine. I'm sure it's Brigantine, as in the boat. Brigantine boat? Are you with me? No, not at all. I didn't think you were. New Jersey last week. In the spirit, now I say last week, this email has been hanging around for a little while, so apologies, Eric. But you know me, Eric, we were going to get to it sooner or later. Of course we were. In the spirit of embracing the world on one's doorstep, from the most recent Friday episode, and also Barry Butler's episode, so now we know just how long ago this was. 226, fantastic. You must go back and listen to a man that photographs every sunset and every sunrise in Chicago. What a joy talking to Barry. I'm also sending a few photos from my walk. I don't recall seeing these flowers on prior walks in the last week. They were a little off to the side behind a fairly large rock. See, there's a photographer really scouring the floor with his eyes. I'm usually walking so intently that I'm not noticing what's around me. I had my trusty X100V with me and got a few colour and Acros style photos, which turned out quite lovely actually. In the colour photo you can see a small spider on a white petal on the right. I didn't see it at all when taking the photo, so nice to have those little surprises when editing. Now, you know me, I've gone and put up the black and white image. So you took a similar picture. I think they're a second or so apart, but I like it because I've got two colours of the birds. Well, one of them's a martin, I assume. Is it? Hope so. Maybe not. Actually, no, it's not, is it? Neil, your bird recognition. You'd have thought doing these Friday photo walks by now, your wildlife recognition skills will be so much better. Yes, I know, you're quite right. But I've chosen the black and white image, and you can still see that small spider on it, but it's a kind of a Where's Wally picture in some respects, and you've got to look a little bit harder. But that is a challenge I like. Lastly, he says, I wanted to share some sound from my trip to the wildlife refuge. I lack the tools and skills to edit and trim the audio. Don't worry, I've done that for you. It was a sort of reasonably long recording, but it needed to be, actually. I think often when you're recording audio, no, always when you're recording audio, record more than you need, because particularly when you're making films, you think, oh, I just need a bit more wild track. Why did I stop the recorder there? Same actually goes for when you're shooting the film itself as well, the video itself. Never, they always say, don't they, when you go to press the button, they always say, who's they? Those that are in the know, the mentors in that particular industry, say that when you're videoing, when you're filming something, when you go to press the stop button, don't stop. Stop. Don't press it. Wait. Because when you get back to the edit suite, you're always going to say, I wish I just needed 2 or 3 more seconds. That's all I needed. Same goes for sound. So yeah, I did trim it, but it was good that you sent in quite a long track, because I needed that. There was a community of purple martins chirping back and forth. As you can probably hear, I'm going to roll them in now so you can hear these martins. So these martins aren't with me on this photo walk. They are in another part of the world. They're in America. They're American martins. Can't you hear their accent? Slightly different to the British one. Yes, I think you'd agree. They're chirping back and forth, and a little later in the recording, near the end, almost sounding in unison, kind of like a cooing, I guess. I don't really know the word for it, says Eric. But have a listen. I haven't heard anything quite like it. I really like, Eric, that you recorded some audio. We can literally be with your pictures and with you on this photo walk, can't we? I think it's a great idea. Here's something we could start doing. Don't make this confusing or complicated, Neil. I'll try not to. Not everybody likes recording audio, I know, but it's very easy to do. There's so many, you've got the perfect recording mechanism with you, your smartphone. You just have to remember not to point it into wind, otherwise you get this howling sound. So you need to remember that, or get one of those dead cats that I talk about, the fluffy thing that goes on the end. You can buy them for your phone, so they're very easy, and they will cover the mouthpiece, but not so much that it's completely muffled, that you can't hear what's going on in the background. That's what I use when I'm doing these photo walks, after all. But adding some texture to your pictures, I don't know. I mean, I guess that's because you would perhaps present them as a video piece, or maybe you're making a picture that will go on Instagram with because you can join up the sound and picture separately there if you use a program like Headliner. What else? I don't know. I mean, just sometimes like Robert Gumpert, who passed me who sent a mail this week actually. Passed me some pictures of a project that he's working on. He's the photographer that was working in a prison, recording those that are inside, talking about their crimes in a very candid, lucid and candid manner. But he's got a new project coming up, and he's been recording audio for that to go with the still images. So yeah, forward thinking there, Eric, and I really appreciated it. We could, I suppose, if you sent in some of the audio alongside some of the pictures that you make, I could try and weave it into the photo walk as well. So we, just like we did with Eric there, we could literally join you. Right, some inspiration. I'm going to fast forward to next week on Wednesday, when our guest is Finn Beals, who is one of those who've helped choose the cameras for this year's MPB Kit Hall of Fame that we were talking about right at the head of the show. Finn is an award-winning travel and lifestyle and commercial photographer, and he lives in Wales, a beautiful part of Wales. Very, very lucky. The pictures that he makes for his Instagram, just to show him at play in the wild. Oh, yeah, insanely jealous. But he has this wonderful cinematic style as well that he photographs in. And he shoots for the likes of Apple and Land Rover, people like that. Honestly, this is living the dream stuff when you see his work, from a commercial perspective, that is. But he's worked blooming hard for it. And he also has something to add in the Wednesday edition about using Instagram, as he was an early adopter. But we'll save that for next week. I think we've talked about Instagram enough today. But he started creative life in design. He opened a company with his mates, and photography he did photography as part of that. So it wasn't that he was suddenly brand new to photography. He knew, as they say, his onions. But his first, I suppose, what you could call big sort of solo photography break came when he got involved with a festival that did everything from music to arts to poetry. It was a local festival that then subsequently it somehow ended up being in other countries as well. It's called the Hay Festival. I'm giving away far too much because he's just about to talk about it. But it did get me thinking. This clip did get me thinking that having an open heart and open mind, to coin a phrase from Marissa Roth from episode 232, it can certainly open some doors.
I guess my first predominantly photographic assignments were by the Hay Festival, which is a big festival that takes place in our town of Hay-on-Wye. And the director of that festival, I was working on their website at the time, and he saw some of the photo work that I was doing, and he said, "Would you like to shoot a festival for us?" And I was like, "Yeah, totally." That was a really nice brief to get, because it was all sorts of different types of photography, from portraiture of authors to documentary, comedy, lifestyle. And when the festival went overseas, I traveled with them. And so then I could start incorporating travel work. And when the festival moved overseas, the actual stuff on site didn't really look much different from the stuff that was happening in Wales. So I started shooting, I'd go out into the streets in like early morning and shoot street scenes. And then I'd drop those street scenes into the essays that I was making, from say Colombia or Mexico. And so you could differentiate between the different festivals. You could drop in the portraiture of the authors, but then you could drop in a street scene of like early morning Cartagena in Colombia. And then it gave the essay a sense of place and a story.
Finn Beals is back on Wednesday, and that's it for today. Keep sending your questions, feedback and photo stories to studio@photographydaily.show so that I can feature you in next week's mailbag edition, which is this Friday Photo Walk. On that note, remember you can also send in pictures from your own photo walks to appear in the episode's show page online, with links to your website or Instagram should you wish. All the links to today's pictures and photographers we talk about will be on the show page, which is linked to from your app right here. If you haven't yet, join our private Facebook group and follow us on Instagram and Twitter. And if you get a moment, leaving a review via your podcast app can do wonders for us to spread the word. My thanks to our amazing patrons who make this show possible. And if you'd like to join them, you'll find a link on the photographydaily.show website. Music on the show was from the incredible artlist.io. And I look forward to photographing with you, hearing from you and talking with you next time.
There we go. Another week, another photo walk. You ready to go home, Carl? I think you've forgotten to tell them something. Have I? No. That's a very long episode. I think I've said more than enough. No, you've definitely forgotten something. What have I forgotten? Starts with R, ends with T. Camera that starts with R, ends with... No, not a camera. Lens that's... No, I don't know. Starts with R, ends with T. Repeat? No, reach. Reach out? No, retreat. Yes, retreat. Yes. Oh, I meant to do this right at the start. Yes. We had this idea. Well, Carl didn't. Charming. Well, no, you didn't, to be fair, Carl. This idea that, I don't know, it's just kind of work in progress at the moment. I fully appreciate that if you're overseas, this might not be so possible, but it is going to be a little while from now. Most likely, maybe November, but I think that's too early. Probably more like the start of the year. We've been thinking about doing a photo walk retreat. Yes. You seem very excited, Car. Well, I am, because it's an adventure for me too. Yep, you get to come and meet Car on a photo walk retreat. Not quite sure what it's going to be like yet, and like all these things, you throw things in the air, just have a chat about them, really. So if it's the sort of thing that might interest you, why don't you email in studio@photographydaily.show and let me know. Will it be free? Well, no, not free, but not ridiculous. And a lot of work put into it, I might add. All sorts of ideas, some challenges. Normally these things are great by the sea, aren't they? Oh, I love the sea. Well, there we go, I've remembered. Retreat. Well, let me know what you think. I will do, I love the idea. I wasn't talking about you, Car. I was talking about those that listen. Ooh, well, for what it's worth, I approve.
Photography Daily is a Loading Zone production.